attempting to run the meeting, so please be kind. It's okay to laugh at me. First on the agenda is approval of the minutes of the regular meeting from November 7th.
So moved.
Second.
Second, any discussion? All in favor? Any abstain? Oppositions? No? Okay.
No, I'm abstaining.
You abstain?
I don't think I was, yeah, I
We're
wasn't
here,
here.
Scott?
It's, I
Well,
made
actually,
you and
Jim,
missed so
actually,
many.
Jim,
meetings
Scott,
going
and
on.
Jessica were not here.
Okay.
According to the notes. Good.
That's true.
What, are there any abstentions?
That's the one. I remember that.
Perhaps Jim,
Yeah,
Scott,
should-
Jessica?
Yeah.
Can I retract my approval for an abstention?
Yeah.
It's probably a smart move.
Yeah.
Okay. Any adjustments to the agenda?
We have none.
Great. This is gonna be, that was good. Persons desiring to address the board. Is there anyone in the audience who would like to address the board?
Oh, we didn't.
Thank you, Tony. Hey, you guys are taking good care of me. Empty. Okay, anyone else? All right, seeing none, let's move on. Board chair. Oh, that's me.
Committee assignments, that's
Okay.
you. So Karen and I talked today, and we're presenting this slate. However, I will ask the finance committee to weigh in. Maybe Heath, I'll put you on the spot, you shared a concern before we started.
Yep.
Go right ahead, Heath.
Well, I just noticed, and I just mentioned to Rick, we've got 4 members on the finance committee, which is fine, but we just need to go forth knowing that 3 of these folks we have to have 3 signatures on warrants. We have to have the majority of the committee, so if we had 5, we'd need 3,
Yeah.
or 6, we'd need 4. So that's something that we'd have to keep in mind if we want to go forth with the slate as it is.
So as long as all 4 people know that, that's a commitment we'd have to make. Otherwise, the checks wouldn't be released, and that may not be good.
How many have been on the finance committee in the past?
3.
Yes, Jim, Allen, and myself.
So as long as we're comfortable with that, unless anyone has any other additions, subtractions, or modifications, that's what we'll go with. As you all know, you're entitled to go to every subcommittee meeting. Scott?
My only concern around negotiations is, particularly being the only member on negotiations, given the intensity of the last negotiating session and my availability around that same time period may be really limited. So
Here's
I'm
the good news,
concerned
Mr.
about that.
Cuddy, or Legislator Cuddy, Legislator Cuddy. Sorry, here's the good news. That's not going to commence until probably January of 2020. So you have another year to get
Don't
there.
we have sports then?
They're, both contracts are good till 2020.
Oh, okay.
So-
No, never mind.
So I just put you in there because I didn't get anything, so I put you in there as a placeholder.
That's fine, that's fine.
But next year at this time, you're going to have to answer that question as to who is going to be participants in the negotiations committee, because next November, December, January, negotiations will start with 2 collective bargaining contracts.
Yeah, okay.
So if there are no modifications, then folks, we will go with this slate. Okay, very good.
All right, do we have to vote on it?
No, you don't.
Okay.
So you're up on yours now.
Oh, I was trying to find my notes. Okay, so, the ad hoc superintendent evaluation, as you know, we voted, after much discussion over months, and months, we voted on a new policy around the, superintendent evaluation process. So that is now officially adopted, so we will start for the first time this superintendent evaluation process. So what that requires is for us in December to select the superintendent evaluation ad hoc committee, which is typically chaired by the vice chair. And so I'll be looking for 2 or 3 more people in the next few minutes, hopefully, who would be interested in doing the ad hoc committee for superintendent evaluation. We will then be sending out, we'll provide you paper copies if you'd like, but send out electronically to all board members the superintendent evaluation tool that we will ask you to fill out and return back to us prior to January. In January, the ad hoc committee will meet to compile that information and present it back to you without Rick first. We will get together to make sure that we are all on board with the evaluation, and that will be in executive session. And then the following month, we will present sent that to Rick. So this is a brand new tool, and I think the luxury we have with this process is Rick is retiring soon. He's on his way out, so he gets to be our guinea pig. We're really trying to perfect this for the next
great.
superintendent. Is there anyone interested in the superintendent ad hoc? Jane, perfect, good, thank you. Jane was very involved in the creation of the policy.
I would, but it will be schedule dependent when it finally comes to fruition, so yes.
Okay,
If there's a crush of things happening, I will have to relinquish that, but
Okay.
absolutely.
all right.
And speaking about, if I can a minute, speaking about crush, I was talking to Regan, so I apologize if I already said it, but this year will be even much more different because typically, when you have the longevity of the superintendent, after the evaluation, then you basically negotiate a subsequent contract. As you all know, that was negotiated 3 years ago, so that won't occur here. So basically, it'll be the evaluation, goal setting, and the reflection of that, absent any compensation conversation.
Jane and Rob, if anyone else decides later that they're interested, please let me know, and we will set a meeting shortly with them. Okay, sometime in January after we receive all of the evaluations back. Great. Any questions about that?
Do we have a specific date in January that you want it back by?
We will pick one
Okay.
and
So
send it out to
when you
everyone.
send that out, you will
We
have.
will have a
this-
date.
Perfect.
Yep, we will do that. All right. Next up, personnel.
Under personnel, I have 2 resignations to report publicly tonight. Christine Keeley, a faculty member at Reedsbrook Middle School, and Jacob Joy, a faculty member here at Hampden Academy. And we're looking, Mr. Tracy and Mr. Rue, in the process of securing permanent positions because we have long-term subs in each. Is that correct, Bill?
That's
Don?
correct.
That's where we are, yep, okay. No nominations this evening. So under the superintendent's report, reading the essential behaviors and outcomes proclamation this evening is Jim.
Yes, that's right, I was told that.
There you go. Okay, education enables all students to learn the skills, acquire the knowledge, and develop the attitudes necessary for them to reach their potential as citizens who can meet the challenges of a changing global society. We believe that all citizens in our communities share the responsibility to educate our children and themselves. Our schools are community support systems and should welcome and encourage all members of our communities to participate. And our schools will have a supportive and empowering atmosphere for all students and community members.
Thank you, Jim. Next item is D. Last week I sent you out the article in the Portland Press Herald with respect to the model that the Camden Rockport School District's using this year. As Tony and I talked by email, they're going to be reporting out to their school board in the June-July timeframe as to the pluses and minuses and so on. And many school districts have a very strong interest in seeing how this model will work. So hopefully the article is pretty clear in what they're trying to do, and hopefully they'll have some success that will give us another alternative. Any comments, Tony?
Yeah, what's the legal precedence for that as far as school days and digital days and?
That's a good question. That's a very good question. That probably will come into the mix. I think when they started this, I'm not an expert on this, but I think they actually received preliminary approval from the department to do it on a trial basis. But your question is a great one. And I think we discussed this last year. The department now allows us to make up the storm day by adding a certain amount of time per day as well. They will not waive the days, though, I can tell you that. So we'll see what this brings in the summer of 2019, whether it's something we might want to look at or the other issue. I have a lot of questions with it as well that we don't need to get into tonight, but we'll certainly see what the observation of SAD 28, I think, is. Mary Ann?
So how would that not be like online learning or taking an online class? It would just be an online day of learning.
I don't know a lot about it, Mary Ann. If any principal knows more than I do, please chime in. But it's a lot of work associated with the teacher preparing. If you read the article, they prepare packets and so on.
Yeah.
That's one thought. The next thought is if there's a technology component to it, what about the kids that don't have internet at home? Getting back to Tony's question, I was thinking when he was talking, if you're a teacher, what's that gonna mean with the teacher preparatory time? Is that compensated time, or how does that fit into the mix as well? So there's a lot of questions bundled into that. I think, as you probably saw the quote of the superintendent, if it's not working day one, they may abandon it right after that. So we'll see how it goes. As we all know, anytime there's a change, it's interesting to see how that comes together.
And these teachers may prepare 10 times, only actually do it 2 or 3.
Sure.
So they've got to prepare, if the forecast shows some snow tomorrow, then they may end up showing it up at school and it's out the window.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. So we'll see how it goes.
Might be interesting too at some point, just to do an informal survey of what the students think about this.
Well, I'm sure they'll have, or I shouldn't assume anything, but I'm pretty confident come June, they'll have a widespread audience of people giving them feedback as to the pluses and minuses and the differences,
That'll be
right?
interesting.
It will be very interesting. And of course, the other thing you would presume for a moment, maybe they won't have a snow day. Oh, there you go.
I'm thinking of administering this in the Frank household on a 10-year-old boy on a snow day. How that will go over like days that we were supposed to have snow, and we didn't. So
Yeah.
I can only imagine, learn that it's a snow day and they'll be doing online interactive
Right.
lessons.
Right. Okay, so more to come in the summer. So I'm going to ask Regan, we have a couple extra books. I want to have Eric and Sue receive a copy. So, getting back to the annual evaluation of the superintendent schools, it starts by the district status report. And some of you have not been through this process before because we haven't done it for a couple of years. There's a lot of information in this document, and I know you've all done your homework before you came here tonight and read my email on Monday, okay? But what I want you to do, though, seriously, is I want you to interrupt me or make a comment or ask a question as I go through the report. The other thing I want to amplify to you as the obvious knowledgeable people of this, but for the audience, as Amanda mentioned before, I have 1.5 years left. So I have intentionally put some very concrete, logical initiatives in here, but I also kind of whetting people's appetite with respect to what I think may happen, like the snow day. It may not happen. But as I said to Regan many times before, you have to be thinking about many things, of which 98% of them may not even happen, but you have to be ready for them. And for me, a vision or forward thinking is not here, it's out here. And Jane and I were talking a little bit about that tonight. You have to be thinking about the next 8 to 10 years, or at least that's the way I think of it as a superintendent. And we'll look about that when we get to the enrollment figure, okay? So please interrupt me, and I'm going to read with you to go through this document. On November 13, 1961, Hampden and Newburgh formed a school administrative district to be numbered 22. On May 16, 1970, the town of Winniport, for our Winniport residents, after multiple unsuccessful attempts, voted to join SAD 22. The towns in Hampden and Newburgh voted positively. And I told my administrative team yesterday, you might be interested in this, particularly you people that are alum of HA. Wing 4 came in just before 1970 because Dr. Ski and the superintendent at that time did a marvelous job. He convinced the Department of Education to subsidize the building of Wing 4 because Winterport was coming into the district. A little bit of tidbit. So picture where Wing 4 is in the old high school, right? That's how that came to be in the 1970 timeframe.
Excuse me, which one is Wing 4?
That would be, I'd call it the English, it came down to the library. So if you came out of the library and walked straight out, Jim, that was Wing 4.
Yeah.
Is that right? Yep,
Yep.
that's Wing 4.
Had a little glass walkway.
There you go. Yep.
Yeah,
that's
Yep,
Wing 4.
that's
All
Wing
right.
4.
I remember the Ginn family used to defend the narrative.
All right, we won't get into any stories here now. Okay. The town of Frankfort and SAD 22 towns in Hampden, Newburgh, and Winniport emerged on July 1, 2013 to form regional school unit RSU 22. The school district over the last 50 years has experienced tremendous growth and has become one of Maine's premier school districts. Some of you may not realize this. This school district of excellence may have been accentuated best in 2007, which I've included the full report, when SAD 22 was one of only 5 Maine school districts that was not required to consolidate under Governor Baldacci's mandated reorganization plan because of being designated high-performing and high efficiency. Now, at that time, we had about 270 school districts, and we're one of 5. And I know you're going to ask me what were the 5. I can't remember exactly, so if I could just be close. Yarmouth, Falmouth, us, Kingfield, and there's one more. I can't remember who it was. But you can see we're in pretty good company. Those schools usually are identified pretty much with us with respect to outcomes. So 1 of 5 that we didn't have to reorganize. I've included the full report, which actually is authored by a lady at the time, had children in our school, Janet Behrman, thank you. Rignall, I think was her last name, I never can. Okay? Age 2. The district student enrollment on October 1, 2018 was 2,446, a growth of 6.3% over a 5-year period. That's very uncommon for Maine school districts, by the way. Many Maine school districts are losing students. The December 2016 projected enrollment of resident students conducted by planning decisions to the years 20, 26, 27 is established to be 2212, Exhibit B. Let's turn to Exhibit B. We have had planning decisions for a number of years. And first of all, if you look at the columns, you have resident students, self-explanatory. Middle column, non-resident students. Notice back 11 years ago, we had 8 of them. And the reason we had 8, we did not accept tuition students. We had, at the time, approximately 8 to 10 portable classrooms at Hampden Academy. We now, this year, have 48. The total attending students, they projected to be 24, 26. They were pretty close. They were off by 20. So, the long and short of this is, we're going to see a downward spiral of approximately 170 to 180 kids in 7 or 8 years. We need to be thinking about that. We need to be thinking about it now, but certainly the next 2 or 3 years, we need to be looking at that very seriously, if that happens. The other thing I'd recommend to the board, you may want to in a year or 2, have the planning decisions do another calculation and estimation what our enrollment's going to be. Because the enrollment, I'm going to show you in a few moments, on the 279, is a very significant financial driver. Okay? So the first theme here is that of enrollment. So the other thing I put in this paragraph as a reminder, this current school funding formula has an incentive for regionalization. So my first thought to you to think about is, if this district sees a loss of students over the next 5 or 6 years, we need to be thinking how regionalization may be advantageous for us. Okay? Continuing with the regionalization concept, we currently have regional initiatives in adult ed and the leadership component with the Southern Penobscot Regional Program. I believe our fiscal plans also will be an incentive. And let me share with you only one of my failures at this time. We had an initiative back 4 or 5 years ago to create a STEAM project here at Hampden Academy. A STEAM project. Not a STEM, but a STEAM, because we wanted to insert the arts, because we have one of the premier performing arts centers in the state of Maine in public schools. So with 900-seat Performing Arts Center, how can we then have a regional concept to incentivize kids to come to Hampden Academy? And that was a major goal that unfortunately did not gain steam, if you will, to happen. But we might want to think about that, and actually I talked to John about that today, how we might want to embed that in our strategic plan. As you know, Bangor has a STEM program. Why can't we take the STEM program and make it the STEAM program? So you're getting the flavor of what I'm advocating for. At this point, and many people maybe in our audience, well, we have a few public people other than our administrators, at this point I convey the superintendent's primary goal, my personal goal, as I reflect on the 57 years of our school district. It's a fact that over 50 years, since 1968, this district has been privileged to have only 3 superintendents of schools. As I shared with my administrative team yesterday, if you don't know this, fortunately all 3 are still alive. I'm still alive, obviously. My predecessor was Carlton Barnes, who was here from 1982 to 1992. And Dr. Skean, who was here from 1968 to 1982. Dubois. There was a Carlton Barnes, though. Good catch, John. Let me go back again. 1968 to 82 was Dr. John Skean. 82 to 92 was Carlton Dubois. And 92 to myself. So if you look at the chart, 14, 10, 27. Probably not too many districts have had that continuity of leadership. And I would make the plea to you, which you already know. It's not about Rick Lyons, but it's about continuity and leadership. Now, I'm not going to tell this story because people probably are annoyed by it now, but some people, does everyone know how Hampden Academy that we're sitting in came about? Everyone has the short story for the people who don't know, we did not get on the list to subsidize. We were 3 spots short. But our spouses called Emil and I pretty stubborn, and we didn't give up. And we lobbied the legislature to get the money to build this facility. If you wouldn't have had the continuity and leadership, whether it was me or Emil, my estimation to you, that would not have happened. Because people did not understand from 1993 to 2005 where we came from and where we were. So that's my plea for the consistency, the longevity of the position in this CEO position.
What's the average length of tenure?
The average right now is about 3.4. So what's that, 40 months? So by the time you put your pictures up on the wall, they're ready to take them down because you're leaving the office. The national average I knew was about 3.4 to 3.5 years. And Jane and I were talking tonight. Her daughter lives in Scarborough. The Scarborough superintendent resigned last week. Now Scarborough is a pretty good school district. And they're going to be challenged to find someone for that school district. For many reasons, I won't go into tonight, but they're going to be challenged to find a leader. I think the lady that's leaving there, and correct me if I'm wrong, I think it's only been there 18 months.
I was gonna say less than 2 years.
Yeah, less than 2 years, yeah. Okay? So none of you have ever, fortunately, been on the interview committee for the superintendency. Okay? But you're going to see in here that my recommendation to you is I strongly encourage this board to appoint my successor prior to November 1. And what I would ask you to consider is when you go through my evaluation to discuss that point and ask yourself, where's the timing on this? Should we do it in January, February? Or do you do it in December, January? But please give that your utmost attention because that's going to be a critical decision. Tony?
When we establish that interview committee, can we invite members of the public, like say somebody with tremendous institutional memory like Martha Harris?
You absolutely can do that. It's very common that a superintendent search committee may be students, faculty, citizenry, board members. Absolutely. Absolutely you can do that.
How about email?
Well, I don't know, but
Or is that-
yeah.
Maybe an
Yeah.
arm's distance?
You could do a person like Emo, yes, you could. Matter of fact, I saw Martha Harris last night, just by the way. But yes, Tony, you absolutely can do that. You
I mean,
absolutely
we're a
can.
young board, and I mean, no disrespect to anyone on the board, but I mean, what, 6 years?
Yeah.
6? I mean, that's a young committee, so.
Yeah. And I want to play out that point, again, not with all due respect to the board members. We're going through some stuff tonight, you're going to say to yourself, I've never heard this stuff before. But this is one of the purposes of this presentation tonight, to see how all this works. I mean, Rob over here is one of our experts in finance. When we get to the 279, it's going to click with him. But you're going to ask a question to him. Rob and I are going to help you with Regan. But it's important that we understand this stuff. And it is important to talk about longevity. I mean, how did this district get to where it is today over the last 50 years? And where do you want it to go in the next 40 or 50 years or 20 years, or whatever the case may be? So that's what I would say, and you would certainly have the opportunity, as Tony's asked, to discuss this among the board in the upcoming months. Also, talking about leadership, Maine school districts will also be experiencing a change in leadership associated with our new governor and commissioner. We must be active in monitoring the legislative landscape as it pertains to public pre-K education, public pre-K through 12 education. We do have the advantage of 2 legislators with Scott and David. The future composition of funding associated with essential programs and services is unclear. The early advancement of child development services becoming a part of pre-K through 12 has shown no sign of formulation. Legislative activities will be of paramount importance, and we must be at the table. I don't want to put pressure on Scott, but he's certainly going to be a very valuable asset for us to report back to this board. And I would say probably, getting back on Tony's point a little bit about longevity, we've been a little bit disappointed in the board that we haven't engaged to a greater degree with our legislators. And I think we need to do a better job with that. However we format that, I'm not sure yet, but we need to be doing that. We now also are within 4 years of committing to the board's vote of February 4, 2015 to convey for $1 the Newburgh Elementary School to the town of Newburgh after January 15, 2022. And that's when we pay off the Honeywell HVAC project. That's why that's aligned with that. I'm meeting, actually, Regan and I are meeting week after next with the town manager from Newburgh. I will put this on a future building and committee agenda to discuss whether we want to commit to that vote or not. And the reason for that is obvious. And that is, if we're going to lose students, and if we're looking at maybe possible regionalization, does Newbury Elementary School become an asset for us? Don't know. But it may. If we create a regional center, let's say Sue reported tonight to the Ed Committee on National Board of Teachers, can we have a regional center and have it housed at Newbury Elementary School? I'm just thinking out loud. I have no idea. But you have to think that way versus say, okay, we voted and now we're going to pass it over. But you want to be right on 2022 if that's still the right move. Keith?
How binding was that board vote, though, at that time? The board voted to do that.
That's a good legal question. We probably would have to, if the board wanted to, let's say a year and a half down the road, rethink, okay, we might want to examine that vote. You might have to bring legal opinion in and say, can that be overturned, or how can it be overturned? Or are we legally bound to do that? Likewise, let's swing the pendulum the other way. What if the town of Newburgh was now saying, and had a similar conversation that I'm saying tonight, maybe they're saying, do we want to take that building over now and assume the maintenance and responsibility and the liability and so on and so forth? And then, how does a pre-K program come into place? Joe?
Was there a purchase and sale agreement?
No. We have a signed contract, and I can present that to you, matter of fact.
Okay, so there's a contract.
Yeah, yeah. But those are legal questions that I can't answer, but I think your questions are right on board. My point here tonight is to remind now all 14 of you, of which probably 10 of you, if that's not a fault of yours, you didn't know that. But you're going to have to be thinking about it. Okay, now let's go to finances. Our school district is in great financial shape, in my opinion, as illustrated by the following. I'll put some bullets here. As noted previously, the primary focal point for future school funding is the monitoring of conversations pertaining to the composition of the school finance formula. Furthermore, as I shared with you at the November board meeting, the federal budget and the impact of Title I and Title II we need to monitor very, very carefully. The board and subcommittees, as Scott just brought to our attention earlier, we have worked tirelessly to now secure 2 collective bargaining contracts that go to June 30, 2020 for the support staff, August 31, 2020 for the teachers. Also, hard work from Regan, the Hampden County Administration, board members. We've secured a successful district-wide referendum for the multi-purpose field. Even though it was a close vote, we had more positive than negative. But we had a very strong 68% endorsement in the district budget, which, as we all know, and Rob particularly, that was a budget that was quite aggressive as far as the request of our citizenry. So that's very, that should be very complimentary for the work that our board members did on that. Hampden Academy, as of October 18, 2018, enrolled 34 tuition students. If you look at that through the fiscal lens at $9,108.52 per student, that's $309,689 for revenue. The 805 student enrollment as of October 1 is still below the building capacity of 850. Now let me also make sure that you're aware of this. If you were to walk up to the 3rd floor and go from west to east, on your left, on that wall, there's cinder block there. I'm not a technician, so I'm going to make this up. But behind the cinder block, the infrastructure for 3 classrooms is there. Now, Rob, you probably could do that right. In other words, when we built this school, we had to build in the opportunity for expansion. The basic infrastructure is there. You want to elaborate?
5 classrooms.
Thank you. So, and then we just basically have to wire it and all the things, but it's in the existing infrastructure to add to Hampden Academy's 850 if we need to.
Structure, heating plant, parking, although
Yes.
some would argue that there's not enough. It's all designed to handle 5 additional classrooms.
Yeah, very good. So that's a strength for us. Okay? Yes? Mary Ann?
I just have a question.
Yes.
Because it was notable to me that the per pupil costs
Yes.
for our district has been pretty flat
Yes, it has.
over the last
Yeah, yes.
10 years.
Mm-hmm.
And with declining enrollments,
Yeah.
how will declining enrollments affect that? And how does our less than the state average per pupil cost affect what we could do for our students?
Wait till we get to that chart. The first thing I want to say before I forget is, one of the reasons why we've been advantageous, we've had population growth. So by population growth, you've been able to flatline the per
Okay.
pupil cost.
Okay.
But we'll wait and we'll get back to that when we get to that chart.
Okay.
Okay, very good. So basically, the theme here is one of enrollment. The primary and somewhat controllable focal points within this enrollment theme are non-resident students and regionalization. We'll need to have foresight here, and this is one I really want to amplify. You are going to have foresight here and explore alternatives that may include exclusive secondary contract with municipalities that have only K-8 schools. So for example, why not have Glenburn meet with us and talk about the possibility of Glenburn signing a 10-year contract to send their children to Hampden Academy? Or drive up I-95 to VZ and say to VZ, are you interested in an exclusive contract? If I'm not mistaken, Warrington has an exclusive contract with Brewer High School. So you lock that security in. Okay, they don't, or they did? They did a few years ago? Okay.
They go to Bax.
Thank you. But my point is, and that is, do you want to have a conversation with these districts that now have school choice for their security and also selfishly for our security? Maybe you don't want to, that's fine. I'm just putting out there as an option. The other thing I put in here to repeat, you're hearing the theme here, regionalization. What happens if a neighboring school community like Frankfurt, what happens if they dissolve themselves from the existing RSU? And there's 2 or 3 around us that may actually indeed do that. Okay. Okay. So we need to be thinking about those things. We need to be listening to people, and we need to give some conversation about be ready when that happens. We don't want to be behind the 8 ball. I note here the financial goal for 2020 and beyond to be simple, albeit profound. We continue to ensure internal accounting aligns perfectly with the school funding formula to receive the greatest return. What I mean there is, when Regan and Trish do the budget, we have to put it in where it's going to have the greatest return. So let me give you a good example. When we do enrollment, you need to make sure, this one sounds simple, but I want to illustrate my point. Pre-K through 2 children receive 115% reimbursement. So we need to make sure that the children are positioned correctly. When you have special ed costs, or when you have English as a second language costs, there's weighted factors where those kids receive a greater return. So the basic point here, and the funding formula is very complex, so I just want to let you know that it's going to be of paramount importance that it's done absolutely correctly to receive the greatest return on the investment. And we'll talk about that a little bit more in the 279. So I put down there again to repeat, pre-K through 2 enrollments, a weighted count, special ed, and so on. Okay? So now let's go to Exhibit C. And this one here is pretty intense, insofar as a lot to it. So I want to go over a few points and just interrupt me for clarity. So let's look at A, first of all. Remember, there's 2 factors in school funding. One is the valuation of your towns, and the other one is enrollment. So notice in this 279, 2017 I took, the pre-K through 8 enrollment is 1,649 kids. You can see it in letter A. And the high school is 723. And these 2 numbers you're going to see throughout the conversation here tonight, 23, 27. Okay, so now we get on to B. And in the school funding formula that's mandated by the legislature says, okay, RSU 22, we're going to support pre-K through 5, 1 teacher for 17 children, 17-to-1 ratio. Same ratio for the middle school, and the ratio for the high school is 16-to-1. So in summary, they're going to say, we're going to support the EPS for those teachers. We're going to allocate 142.2 teachers to your district. We're going to pay for them through the funding formula. And notice how many we have. We have 145. So we have 2.8 teachers, to make it simple, that are locally funded, because we don't get the reimbursement. So when we put a budget together, and Rob takes us through the itinerary, Regan and I look at this very closely. So if we say, can we support more teachers, the answer may be yes, but we need to realize that we're above the commitment of the state already. So that's the piece of the puzzle that we need to examine. Let's take a look at let's take a look at librarians. The state, number 3, says, we will support through the formula 3 librarians, and we have 2. So we're 150% reimbursement because we're 1 short. So that's how the staffing patterns work, and I don't want to belabor the point there, but you can see I will accentuate because sometimes administration takes a hit. Look at administration. School administration, the formula says we should have, or will be supported financially from the state at 7.7 people, and we have 7. So if someone were to catch you in Hannaford someday in your moment of weakness and complain about administration, and Rob Frank with his level
Never
of
happened.
acuteness could say, I'm sorry, we actually are in a very advantageous position with respect to school funding because we actually have less than the state will actually allow us. Okay? Now let's go down to letter D. These are some that are kind of that annoy me, to be very transparent with you. Substitute teachers. Last time I knew that substitute teachers don't teach a half a day, but the state only recognizes them for a half a day. And here's the key. They then allocate that at $42 for elementary children and secondary children. Here's where your enrollment comes in. And when you have the stability of enrollment, you're going to get a greater return on your investment. So you can see there that we have $99,500 approximately for substitute teachers. I don't have the exact figure, but I can tell you very emphatically, we spend much more than the $99,000 in substitute teachers. So now I want to remind you, when we go to the district budget meeting, and we have article, whatever it is, 11, I'm going to make that, and we have the money above the formula called additional local funds, remember that? That's what it is right there. And last time I knew, we raised about $2.1 million above the formula. The reason that's why it's happening right there, because we commit more to substitute teachers, professional development than the formula acknowledges. Let me go to professional development, number 3. You can see there's $64, again, notice the enrollment, $151,000. We spent more last year in course reimbursement than $151,000. So I would say to Legislative Cuddy that the school funding formula is highly inappropriate to meet the needs of a school district, and we can certainly clearly see that in the 279. And then one more, and I'll wrap it up. Letter E is a very, very key component. That's called a regional index, based on where you live in the state. And that's based on your socioeconomic structure within the region. We are based in the greater Bangor area, so our return for salary is 102%. If you're ever interested, get on the DOE website and look at the 279 from Calais or Presque. Their regional index is hovering around 0.85. They're only reimbursed 85% of the salaries because of the socioeconomic structure. And that might be one that might want to be examined in the school funding formula. Okay? So, this is only page 1 of the 279. The 279 is, I think, 6 pages long. But what I want to do is whet your appetite with respect to how the budget has a level of concreteness, or it's always tied to something. It's not that Lions is thinking they need this or need this. I might have my personal advocacy. But you always have to get back to the guiding principles as to how do you have the justification to support that in the budget. Where's the linkage? What's it aligned with? And that's called the ED 279. Enrollment, valuation are the critical parts. So let's just kind of stop there. Anyone have any questions, comments, or anything that needs amplification right there?
When's the 279 come out?
Great question. By law, March 15th. Most of my career has been after March 15th. Regan and I have a little bet on this. She thinks it's going to come out before February 1. Ain't going to happen. Now, it may come out on a preliminary, Joe. We may get a first blush. I know Scott's listening to this. Let me go back. Sometimes I apologize because I missed the years by 1 or 2. Rob will correct me on this. 2 years ago, we didn't have the final 279 until after the district budget meeting. And we received word that we received the gift. We had $256,000, thereabouts, more money than we thought after the district budget meeting. We couldn't spend it. So what we did, we decided to pull it in advance and move it forward, advance it in the next year. So, and by law, March 15th, hopefully we'll know that time frame, Joe. Okay. But that's,
Joe, you can set your watch by it. It's even a broken watch is right twice a day. Don't get it.
Okay,
Once it's digital, it's always.
we're still in finance. We also inform all board members, because some people may not realize this. We received an endowment about 3 or 4 years ago, I believe they're about, from the Tibbetts Foundation, where now we have $276 at Hampden Academy to enhance the library here at Hampden Academy. We'll be looking, we spend, I think, Bill, about $35,000 to $40,000 from that every year, ballpark. And we'll be looking to examine how we're going to expend that and bring that down. But obviously, that's a very generous gift from the Tibbetts Foundation there as well. But one that I do want to amplify, and here is kudos to EML. EML is known in this state as the guru for SRRF, State Revolving Renovation Funds. And look at the chart very closely with me. Notice that over the years, since 1999, this district has brought in to support our fiscal plans $3.8 million in state revolving renovation funds. And this is the way it works. If you look at the figure $3,826,000, that is the total amount funded. But look at the local and state side. Basically what this says is the state gave us $2,654,000 and we contributed $1.1 million. Or said differently, we committed $1.1 million to get 2.8 from the state, 2.6 from the state, and the total is 3.8. What a wonderful opportunity. And that's where you receive the money, basically 70% and interest-free. And you can see the list of projects, many that I recall very vividly, roof, asbestos, and so on, in all those schools. Here's the good news. I told Regan today, and this is again where we have to be ahead of the curve. This project is still alive. The money is much less than it used to be. What the legislature needs to do is increase the funds for the pool, and then we can be at the doorstep, and here's my recommendation, to submit an application to that for the McGraw-Weatherby project, similar to the application on school construction. Watch this one very carefully. This is a big one. Rob, do you have any insight on this from your perspective? You might want to share there.
Not for this year, not
Yep.
looking forward yet.
Yeah, okay. So let's just make sure, and again, Scott, as you hear, putting a lot of pressure on Mr. Cuddy tonight, but as you hear this, but obviously that's Regan and my responsibility as well, know what's going on with respect to conversation. Fortunately, Scott Brown, who oversees this project, Scott's the director of school facilities, he's one of the lone rangers left in the department, believe it or not. He's a call that we can make and talk the same day. And so this is a person that you really need to have a great affinity with, because he's going to keep us knowledgeable of this. This is a very big one, folks. This is a very big one.
I'm just curious on some of the repairs. What is IAQ?
IAQ. I knew you were going to ask that, and I don't know, George.
Indoor air quality.
Indoor air quality? Very good, very good. Oh,
Sounds good.
that's the expertise of board members right
My
there,
vote
indoor air
is
quality.
maybe wrong. and
Yep.
some
No,
others.
yep,
Sounds good.
yep. Roof, indoor air quality, asbestos, and so on. Okay, now we move on to the state revolving renovation fund, but don't forget that one, please. The alumni database of the Education Foundation also play a critical role in finances. We need to be in communication with the leadership of the Ed Foundation to assist them in attaining their motto. Mary Ann, you back tonight to the Education Committee. Vision, mission, motto. The Education Foundation's motto is further innovation and excellence in RSU 22 schools by raising funds and generating community-wide support. This is another one of my failures. The Ed Foundation, in the little perfect world I'm in, I would love to see them flourish because they can be a significant benefactor to this district. I don't know this for sure, but I've been told. They have the alumni database of hundreds of alumni that were probably just, in my estimation with optimism, waiting to be asked to be a benefactor to RSU 22. They need some structure. The people that are running that are good people. They have full-time jobs, and they're volunteering to run the foundation. If money weren't an issue, I would recommend to this board that we put $50,000 or $60,000 in and hire an executive director of the foundation. Long and short of it. So, be knowledgeable of that, because that's an asset for us. Martha Harris, that Tony mentioned before, Martha Harris did all the legal work to form the 501c3. The infrastructure's there, it just need to have the infrastructure with leadership to bring it about. And Peter Witt, you've heard, come to our board in the past, he's the chair, last time I knew, he was the chair of the board. So keep that one in the forefront of your thoughts as well. Yes?
I think it's really important work that they are doing and can do. Is anyone on this board well-connected in the community? Because I think that that's what it takes, and I certainly am not well-connected in the community.
For the foundation, you mean, Mary Ann?
Yeah,
Well,
or-
Regan gave me a heads up on someone that may have an interest in this from our community, actually does this type of work for their livelihood. And I emailed that teacher today to have that teacher's husband contact me. I made it very clear that unfortunately it's not a compensated position, but certainly that person could be invaluable to the Ed Foundation. To get back to like Martha Harris that Tony mentioned, I mean, Martha Harris committed 22 years on the school board. People like that that you can energize to give back and have a role in that. But it's gotta come from what you do every day in your work. It's gotta come from some leadership. And if we have the key leader, I think the Ed Foundation is ripe for flourishing. I really do. I really do.
Just one observation, and not to dig too deeply into it, but I think the focus has been on local community support, and God bless the local businesses that have been approached every year, but it's really almost focused on who's here in town today, not where have the alumni gone. And as the incoming chair of the Humane Alumni Board, I can assure you the folks that, whether they're here or away, it's those that had an impression while they were here. And it doesn't matter if they live even within the 4 towns. It's receiving businesses that receive our graduates, that are advocates for Hampden Academies, people that live here and work not here, that are advocates that bring their kids here. So I mean, I think it's a broader ocean of fish that aren't being tapped today, but it can absolutely start with alumni, and
That's well said.
I don't think it's being leveraged right now as it should be.
Yep, you're right. Good point, Rob.
That being said too, we still have an open position on the Education Foundation Board.
Yes, Karen has asked probably every meeting for someone to volunteer, so again, give that serious consideration, because I would hope in the next few months we can maybe somehow jumpstart that, is my optimism. Next page, the capital reserve account, you're all familiar with that. That's established on the front page of the 2022. We had an article pertaining to that. Now let's really get into the nitty-gritty of funding. Our general fund balance, and you can see here, is very strong. FY13, we were $192,000. This past year, we were a little over $1.7 million. That's the fund balance, and you do what is called the designated fund balance, undesignated fund balance, and so on. But that's basically money that you have that you can use to your advantage. The appropriated fund balance, that's how much we choose to dedicate to the budget. Rob and the committee this year, we committed $440,000 to the budget from the fund balance. Everyone with me on that? You have fund balance, you have designated, and you have undesignated. Some people call undesignated surplus or slush fund or some other things like that. But basically, it's the fund balance, and you have what is designated or undesignated. Do not worry. Let me relieve the stress. Let me eliminate the stress. Do not worry that your undesignated fund balance is 3.7%. That can be taken care of in 5 seconds. Just put it in the capital reserve account.
Just what?
Just put it in the capital reserve account. Do not lose any sleep that you exceed the fund balance by 0.7%. That's a great problem to have. You would lose sleep if you had, I mentioned the Reagan back in my early tenure here, we had no fund balance, folks. None. And that's where the board told me, I'll never forget the meeting. I like to make up numbers, but let me make up the numbers illustrated. Let's assume for a moment in 1996, this district had a $16 million budget. We were meeting at Newburgh Elementary School, and we reported the fund balance that night at $1,600. And our board, Mr. Thompson, who was the chair at the time, the next meeting, we started the meeting where Greg Brodick, if you know Greg Brodick, was our vice chair, and Ralph Thompson met with Emil and me and said, boys, we need to get this straightened. And the board directed us that night, that's really what started the strategic plan. They said, we want that fund balance to increase 2% over the next 5 years. In 5 years, we want a 10% increase in fund balance. That was pretty direct, and we attained it. The point is, the focus of the board, the commitment of the board, in knowing what our directive was, we worked aggressively to attain that. Today, sitting at 3.7, commit more to the budget or put in the capital reserve and bring it down to 3. You can do that in one evening of a meeting. So don't be over concerned or overzealous about exceeding the 3% you can spend over 3 years. We all know that, but just don't worry about it. You have a great problem to deal with. Now we go to the per pupil cost. This is something that we've used with the communities a long time, because the measurement in many people's eyes is, how do you compare with other school districts? And the answer is favorably. Since '07, we have never been above the per pupil cost of the state, never. And the reason for that primarily is continued student growth. Budgets have gone up, yes, at marginal levels, but your student growth is going up, so when you do the division, your per pupil cost is advantageous. Back quite a few years ago, we've had budget increases, if you ever want to know, in my career here, we've had budget increases of 0% 2 or 3 times. 2%. So the factor when you look at RSU 22, remember high performing and high efficiency was the motto. This amplifies it right here. So this year, the most recent FY17, we're $1,830 below per pupil cost. That's pretty significant. Okay? Now we go to curriculum. We leave finance alone, we go to curriculum. Greensboro Middle School and Samuel Wagner Middle School were reaccredited this year. Hampden Academy is preparing right now for their visit this coming March. Before and after school program for elementary students is being explored. Kristen Briggs, our principal at McGraw, Jen, hopefully Don, will be going to some sites to look at how can we provide opportunities for younger children before and after school. I didn't realize this, that when Chris and I met some months ago, this has actually been a request from many of our parents. What can our children do from, let's say, 7:30 to 8:30 before school starts or after school? This has become very popular nationwide. And we'll have some visits, hopefully, to get some opportunities. And the way I understand it right now, there's basically no cost in the school district. It's the parent who chooses to pay their child to go to the after-school program, kind of like a Y program. So you'll learn more of that later. The introduction of the K-8 Envision program in mathematics this past year, and that will be continued to be advanced. Sue O'Brien mentioned tonight and delivered to our education committee the instructional coach integrated this present school year. We had the implementation and refinement of the hybrid report card. The trimester format was introduced at the elementary level this year. And this is something Sue amplified that she actually emailed us Sunday. I actually updated this. And Sue, correct me if it's wrong. Teachers seeking National Board certification has doubled this year. We went from 3 to 6. And we now have 19 in the pipeline for National Board certification.
Most of the state.
Most in the state, thank you. And Sue's been a great ambassador for that. That's nice to see. Likewise, we've seen great growth of our student participation in the United Technology Center over the last 2 years. We're approximately 110, 111, 112 students right now at UTC. Likewise, last week, Regan and I attended the Jobs for Maine graduate recognition ceremony for 45 students, approximately, and Mary Ann did, being introduced into that session, that group, and that's our second year with that group, though, right? So that's another option for our students who are looking at an alternative setting, education, if you will. Hampden Academy has added computer science courses, gifted and talent program at Weatherby and Smith School incorporated coding and creative thinking. Parent seminars have also been introduced, and Hampden Academy enriching online learning and credit recovery options. Our food service programs utilizing local farmers. The management day this year was quite different, and I know Kathy has some ideas to expand that as well in that particular department. Next page. I gave you the last 4 years of Hampden Academy graduation rate as compared to the state. You can see that favorable. However, I'd like to see Hampden Academy obviously at 100%, but nevertheless, that's a comparison. Our dropout rate ever since I've been here is very, very attractive. Again, you'd like to see 0. But when we're seeing 1.4, 1.9, 1.2, those are very favorable rates. And again, the alternative educational settings we can be providing would be advantageous for us.
I have a question about
Yes.
graduation rate.
Yes.
It's really hard to evaluate our graduation rate because we don't have a sense of who is graduating at what level. And given the state testing, it's my understanding that the state testing should actually predict who is graduating, say at 1.0, 2.0, 3.0, 4.0 graduation rate. Is there any way we can get that data? In other words, in a graduating class, how many are graduating with a D, a C, a B, and an A? Because the graduation rate doesn't mean anything if we don't know who's where.
I'm gonna have Bill help me on this a little bit. I have a couple of comments, but I wanna make sure I'm accurate. So Bill, why don't you go ahead?
Well, I would just say the challenge of a graduation rate is it measures a 4-year cohort. So whenever we have a group of students that come in their freshman year, that's when it counts. If that student moves away and doesn't enroll somewhere else, that impacts too.
Right,
So
right.
the data is gonna be skewed that way, because we're not gonna be able to get what we need to say, we have a student that didn't graduate, but we don't have any SAT data because they stopped coming their sophomore year and we can't even locate them. So there's gonna be some stuff we just can't get out of that. Now, could I give you data of my graduates and what their GPA is? Sure, but it's still not gonna hit that dropout rate and have an understanding of where those students are.
Am I incorrect, no one understanding that the graduation rate, independent of grades, is actually whether or not they met all the curriculum requirements to reach graduation? So the grades are maybe indicative, but that's not the sole reason. It's if they missed.
Right, they would have to have all the credits required from the
Right.
4 years, for sure.
Now,
But
Bill,
overall,
Bill, help me with this one. Also, didn't they change the law in 2007 where you have graduation rates on the cohort of 5-year and 6-year as well?
Yep.
Elaborate on that?
Yep, and so what they look at is sometimes the decision from the family and the school to keep a student another year is one that's advantageous. And I think this past year, our 5th-year graduation rate was at 91.5.
Yes.
So that's a real positive. That means we're retaining those students rather than just, although they don't add into your graduation rate the year they should in the 4-year cohort, maybe they needed that extra time, which was really good for them to get.
it's just, it would be interesting to see the trend over time in those categories. I think that informs the graduation rate. Every single statistics that you get is going, for anything, is going to have the kinds of issues that you're talking about. Certainly the testing that we do when children have just come in or have left, so.
But the state testing we do is for really for college preparedness is what that measures. It doesn't measure who should graduate and when they should graduate.
What they know,
You know,
what they don't know.
Based on the national norm.
Right, understood.
Where's
But
the,
I'm on, this is something I'm interested in, certainly if the board doesn't feel that's data that would be instructive.
the other thing, I'm gonna divert maybe a lot of us to AGR who knows much more about this, but the graduation format has changed over the last 11 years significantly. They had the 4-year traditional, like when we went through school, then they had the 5-year cohort, the 6-year cohort. Matter of fact, Cindy mailed to Bill just today, our 5-year and 6-year cohort, I give you the example, but it's hovering around 91, 92%. So in other words, does Rick take 6 years to graduate versus 4?
Yeah.
And those things have evolved.
So is Rick not in that? Because there's 10% of the students are missing. So if you're a 6-year student,
Right.
Are you not in this? Are you one of those 10% that's missing from our?
Yeah, you count against the graduation rate. If
Yes.
you don't
Right.
graduate,
Yes.
you can still be in
Yes.
school.
Yes.
Right.
Still working towards your education, but count against our graduation rate because you didn't do it in the
Yes.
4-year time frame. We see a lot of students that transition in and out of school, and they could be with us in the start, move away, or they could come to us. Sometimes we get some seniors who have, low credits, and so sometimes that is a challenge as well, is that
Yeah.
it'd be great if we could lock students in for 4 years. Here you are, we'll educate you for 4 years, here we go, but the reality of that transition, I think in even some of our other schools, we're at like 15, 16, 20% transitory
The
population.
other thing that's marginalized that, in my opinion, over the last 5 or 6 years, is that of superintendent agreements. So if you have a youngster come in, and we had 3 this year at the high school that came in and really didn't commit to Hampden Academy and really have dropped out. Or we can't find one of the youngsters, and I actually talked to the commissioner's office to try to convince the commissioner's office to send them back to the receiving schools, but you can't do that. I didn't know that. I thought you could basically disinvite students that come through a superintendent's agreement. You can't. when you sign the contract, the covenant is a 1-year commitment. So if you have, let's just make it up, let's say you have 20 superintendent agreement students. If 4 or 5 of those are trying to find the perfect educational setting in Hampden Academy, but it doesn't fit, and they drop out, then that's a dropout for us. So the graduation rate is multifaceted, but I think the good news in generalization is we're still pretty favorable. But again, I'd like to see 0 dropping out and 100% graduating too, so. Okay, now following the theme of that, we'll go to the curriculum. Excuse me, I've given you bar graphs, but at the very end of Exhibit D, I've given you exact percentages. So let's just kind of scroll through, and I'm going to give you my opinion and optimism and some cynicism in this. You can see Hampden Academy, ELA mathematics, and you can see the ELA is very strong, mathematics is less so, hovering around 50% or lower. Let me stop right there and just make an opinion. So please understand this is Rick Lyon's opinion. And I was really pleased to hear Sue O'Brien talk about mathematics tonight in education committee. We need to figure out system-wide, pre-K through 12, why our math scores have been consistently low. And I can tell you in my 27 years here, that's been the scene, consistently low. And we need to figure that out.